Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to the DM Roundtable for November 2019. This is a chance for patrons and I to get together and discuss topics in tabletop RPGs, and by sharing our ideas, thoughts, and experiences, we can all become better DMs and GMs. The DM Roundtable discussions are open to all patrons at every level of patreon.com/RogueWatson. You don't even have to be an active participant. You could jump in here and lurk to your heart's content, and we are glad to have you. Shout out to my platinum patrons, Andrew, Richard, Joe, Will, Tiny Dancer, Nick, and Rodney, and gold patrons, RPG Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy and Yuma, Marcos Dead, Vicente, Gilberto, Sean, A.K., Cert2B, Adam, Dead Lizard Lounge, and Sam. Thank you all very much for your support. This month's topic, as determined by the poll on the Patreon page, is all about character creation. How do we handle character creation as game masters? Do we have any specific rules or limitations or best practices that we follow? Are players supposed to show up with sheets, or do we make them collaboratively? And what insights do we gain from making our own characters as players on the other side of the table? Joining me for this month's DM Roundtable, we have Sean, aka Cert2B. Hello.
Hello, good evening.
We have Jordan.
Hello, how's it going?
Hello. Marcos.
Hey.
And special guest, you may know him as Kalinar. You may know him as Calder Mannix. You may know him as our DM for Storm King's Thunder, Mr. Chris.
Hello.
Hello. All right, so character creation. Marcos, I know you have a lot of experience DMing. Do you usually play Adventurers League stuff, if I'm not mistaken? Do you have folks show up with character sheets, or do you make character sheets? Let's start off with this first topic about
Adventurers League?
Well, not necessarily Adventurers League, but just as DMs, do we start with people just showing up with character sheets and working with it from there, or do we create a collaborative character sheet session, I guess?
Well, it really depends. A lot of times at Adventurers League, there's everything from just straight up pre-made characters that, depending on the adventure, I'll have ready for the table. So that way if somebody shows up saying, "Oh, I don't know what to do," I'll say, "Hey, well, I have these 5 characters. Choose whichever one interests you."
I didn't even think about pre-made is a whole nother subtopic we need to discuss.
ready to play character sheets?
Yeah.
And then also Adventurers League is transferable depending on which table you play. You can play in California or play in Florida with that same character. It's all about you editing your own character sheet and bringing it with you. So most times or not, people already have their character done and ready.
Right.
Because Adventurers League is made to be interchangeable. You don't have to sit at the same table every time. If you're traveling or moving around, you can pick that character with you and play in a different area. So it's really not too much applicable for Adventurers League. Once in a while, I'll be at a fresh table with, a bunch of green-eared people, and they'll be like, "Okay, well, this is how it works." And we start from square one.
Okay.
Oh, you've never seen a player's handbook? Well, I have an extra 2. You guys can look at this. Read over it. I want to play an elf. Okay, we'll start with an elf, and you just go from there. But when it comes to home games or things like that, honestly, I'm pretty open. Anything that's in a published book, when it comes to character creation, for me, it is totally fine. I'm not really too picky about that because if it's in the game, as a dungeon master, you build around it to make your stories.
So the Adventurers League rule, if I'm not mistaken, is you can use anything in the player's handbook plus one other official resource.
Yeah. So for that, you would specifically say, "I want to use Volos in addition with the adventure, in addition with the player's handbook." So you might be able to play a Triton or a Lizardfolk, but the feats and things like that you can use are only from those 2 books. And like I said, most people, but they already have a character, they already have that book chosen.
Right.
Specifically, if they wanted to play like a kobold, somebody shows up with a kobold, but they have the Sword Course Adventures Guide as their second one, you kind of give them the side eyes, like, "I don't know about that." That doesn't make very much sense.
Best of luck.
Does anybody else have any experience with people showing up with with character sheets in your games, or do we pretty much agree of making sheets together?
I'd kind of follow his same process of, in certain situations, if we're doing like a one shot and my players don't have time to create characters, then I'll say, okay, well, I got 3 or 4 that I've been thinking about. Go ahead and pick whichever one you want. Roll up your own stats, pick your own name. But it just kind of simplifies the process. But outside of that, I kind of agree. A session 0 is very, very helpful. Being able to, and terminology wise, session 0, everybody's sitting down talking about, hey, as a DM, this is the world we're playing in. I'll introduce kind of a generic description of it to not give any spoilers out, but give them at least that baseline so things make sense when they're creating their character both with each other, both having interpersonal relationships as well as contrasting relationships. Maybe one person hates another one, or maybe he dated his girlfriend beforehand,
Yeah, some
or
backstory drama in there.
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
That's
something.
interesting.
But with that session 0, it gives you the chance to kind of not only give them the chance to understand what the world is so they can tie themselves to it, and you don't have to take all of that on as a DM yourself. Similar to what you guys are doing with your personal quests.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, that because I didn't obviously create this campaign around the characters. This was just a published pre-made campaign, but once I had an idea of what the players wanted to play, I gave them some very strong hints towards certain character concepts or races or classes that would function better, and more importantly, story wise, that I could fit them in to do those personal quests, because I think most of them I was ended up using story beats and characters and elements that were in Tomb of Annihilation. Like Artis Cimber is in Tomb of Annihilation, and the Red Wizards are in Tomb of Annihilation.
Yeah.
And what was Reese's whole? Oh, so that was a good example. So fun fact: Reese, who plays Theron, in our Tomb of Annihilation. Hopefully, everybody that watches the DM Roundtable on my channel watches our Tomb of Annihilation campaign, because we reference that shit all the time. If you're not, please do watch that stuff. It's great
It's
content.
a sister show.
He wanted to play a druid, and he originally was going to play a furbolg, I think. And when I heard that he wanted to be a druid, then I started pawing through the book, saying like, and having some ideas, and be like, oh man, if you could play a dwarf, then I could really tie you into some neat stuff in here. And he was like, yeah, okay, sure, I'll be a dwarf. Like, it wasn't like a big deal for him to, it was a big deal for him to be a druid, but not necessarily the race. So I was like, all right, let's, if I can guide you along this other path, then I can have you tie in. And I didn't tell him all this at the time, but obviously I ended up tying him into Wormheart Mine and Hrakamar and all the dwarf stuff that's in this campaign. So that was an example of how I used a player's character concept, but definitely recommended them towards a certain build, I guess, or path to work it in the campaign. And this was, I guess this would have been before session 0 then, because we actually made our characters then. So we were actually discussing things well before that.
Yeah. That's it. As you're talking about that, I was remembering with Storm King's Thunder, I didn't ask it. Well, you know what? You asked my advice.
Yes.
You had like 3
Yes.
like choices you had that
I was
you really liked.
I was very nerdy and about it, and I was like, oh man, because I had been a DM for 2 years, whatever. I was like, oh, I'm so excited to play a character, and yeah, I'd whittled it down to I think 3 character concepts that I wanted to play, and I just was like, look, based on what you know about Storm Kings, tell me which one of these do you think would work the best.
But yeah, you were the only one I did that with though, because you asked. The rest of them, I just wanted to know ahead of time, and I mean like weeks and weeks ahead of time. Because I was like, okay, you can be whatever you want. You just gotta tell me, so I have time to just sort of. Because Storm King's Thunder was also a very open sort of campaign, so I was like, okay, as long as I know with enough lead time, I can shape a whole bunch of stuff to fit whatever you choose to be.
Yeah, and you had a whole thing at the Session 0 that actually tied like everybody's personal story in at the beginning too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I wrote little mini short stories for everybody for the very beginning of the campaign, based on who they had chosen to be and how I had decided to like wrap that into the campaign itself. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if we had done like a session 0, and if you guys had picked your characters on session 0 and we had started the next week.
That's true. So we actually needed to have our characters locked in before that in order to.
Which I don't think is probably the normal case. The normal case is probably you choose your characters and you're probably starting your campaign shortly thereafter.
Well, let's ask, because if you all
Yeah.
we've got some other folks here. Sean, you've been quiet on character creation. Session 0, or show up with your sheets, or do characters well beforehand.
Well, I was also letting everyone else speak before I jumped in, so
Lay it on me. Go for it.
I typically will do one of two types. I have used like pre-generated characters, but I really only use those in 2 instances. One is if I'm doing just a one shot and I'm not planning on really using those characters again. That way we can just kind of jump right into the action. The other time that I will use pre-generated characters is if I am working with brand new players or players that are working on a new system. Like, let's say we're doing a Call of Cthulhu this time and no one's ever played that before. I'll just give them character sheets. That way we don't have to go through the character creation and explain the system all at the same time. So it makes it a little bit easier to kind of slide into it.
It's like playing those old computer RPGs where you could start with like an entire pre-made party. And I totally did that when I was younger, because I was like, I don't know the first thing about this game or how to do it.
Right.
Might and Magics and Eye of the Beholders and all those. Yeah, exactly.
But in terms of actually doing like long-term campaigns and things like that, I'm actually kind of on the side of having the characters even before session 0. I will usually get with the players and just find out what type of character they want to do, ask them a couple questions, and then I will ask some questions that seems to be completely unrelated to adventuring, but it really helps me build the background for the character. Like, what were your character's parents like? Are they still alive? Do you have a significant other? Are they still alive? If you weren't adventuring, what would you be doing? Would you be a blacksmith? Would you be this? Would you be that?
Man, these are like interview questions at a job. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
It seems kind of silly in that regards.
I kind of like it.
It has really helped me build like backstories for them, and I've always tied that into the background of a campaign. To give you an example, with a campaign that I'm currently running, my one player who's playing a bard, it suddenly dawned on him when I was asking about like the significant other, how he was basically kind of get caught up in a gang because of a situation when his character was younger. And he actually liked this one girl who was there, who ended up dying to save his life. And so the instrument that he has as a bard used to be hers. And one of the major NPCs that they met ended up being that girl's father, who didn't know what happened to his daughter. So it ended up being this whole big storyline that I was able to build together. And it really kind of helped, especially helped him as a player have buy-in to the story and what was going on.
So did you kind of come up with that all yourself, or did you pull that out of like the character options section of the Xanathar's Guide to Everything?
Really, I would just ask just general questions, like kind of what I was describing before. And I let the players tell me what they're thinking, and then I incorporate off of that. I don't know if my players realize just how often they give me ideas about what's going on. Whenever they're discussing how to approach a situation, I said, well, what about this? I was like, that's actually a pretty good idea. Okay, that's what happens.
Yeah, the only reason why I ask is because for me, like, I started playing before DMing, like I'm sure most of us do. And for me, when I bought Xanathar's Guide and I found this thing, whether I was using Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds or whatever, the roll tables back there is everything you just described.
Right.
So for me, I was sitting there going, oh, I want to do this Shatterkai elf. And with him, he's a adopted kid. Well, why is he adopted? Well, his parents died. Okay, roll another table. Well, how does his parents die? Well, apparently his adopted parents killed his parents, and he didn't know that until
That's some
later.
goddamn drama right there.
And then when he figured it out, he actually ended up killing them, and then he was on the run, so he went off to a Catholic sanctuary or whatever. And so that's the reason why he's a monk, because he's running from his past. But he still has these special weapons that he took from his parents. So he still has ties to it.
His
And
parents
all
or his
that
parents' parents.
Or
there we go.
His parent murdering parents.
So it just kind of spills out, and it's because those roll tables give you that thoughts like you were describing, where it just gets you deeper tied into the story.
Yeah.
So that you as a player can sit there and go, yeah, this is awesome, and you get more excited. So when you have those long-term campaigns, you might mention one tiny little thing. I had a player say, "Oh yeah, I'm looking for my sister." Little did she know, her sister was stolen as a child soldier by a bunch of what are the ones that are the guys that fly around on dragons, red dragons? It's them and their psionic brothers. They were
the GIF Yankee.
there. You go. So
Mm.
her Tabaxi's sister was hijacked by some Gith, and she didn't know if she was ever going to find her. And later, she was going to face her as an NPC and see if she could turn her Darth Vader style. All from a small little thing of, I'm looking for my sister. Okay, I'm going to make her integral to the story.
I'm slightly envious of you guys. All of my players are just, edgy guy with black hair with a trench coat.
That actually is a question I wanted to ask
no
all of you guys.
I have no family. I have no friends.
Right.
Okay, well,
I'm a Blake Cipher of Rage.
No, DM, you cannot hurt me, DM. I'm like, okay, that's a nice looking magic item you have. Oh God, no, please don't. I'm like, hey, I don't have nothing else to use. I mean, I got to use something.
Yeah.
That is a question I wanted to ask everybody here. Like, what, as a DM, what do you do when your players aren't terribly helpful in this process? When it's just like,
I start rolling on random tables.
Random tables, that could work.
Yes, you walk into a city, that's when complications show up. Unless they're in unless they have a reason to be in that city, most times for a quest. But unless they have side things to do, like visit a family member, pay rent, something on the side, I'll roll a random table. Hey, your corn price got stolen. Random table. Let's see what happened. Looks like you got super drunk last night at the bar. You pissed off a local lord, and now he is challenging you to a duel to the death.
So you would do the same sort of thing if you're working with them for character creation, where it's like,
no.
I don't know where my character grew up.
No.
You're just like, let's roll something.
I'm of the mind of, if the person knows what they want, I can be running freaking My Little Pony for my little sister, and he makes Dante from Devil May Cry. I'm like, I mean, the system lets you make Dante, so we figure out how to make this work. I do everything after the fact. I mold the world around my characters.
Yeah.
And if there's nothing to mold them to, then I make situations that make their life interesting. Otherwise, they're just degenerate hobo murdering person in society.
Exactly.
There's nothing connecting them to anything.
Without that, they just murder hobos. We just go around.
They slide into chaotic evil, and then a group of 17 paladins and a freaking diva kills them. So
they're basically the character from Batman called the Joker, but congratulations.
That's right.
Pretty.
And part of that can be you don't have to necessarily come up with your entire character at character creation. Characters can develop over the course of sessions and episodes, and you can have and that's part of the magic of tabletop RPGs is you can have this sudden thing that developed. George hating Grung was not in his that was not part of his character creation at all, and now that's such an indelible part of his character profile, and it's so great. And that was obviously not he didn't have like a rival race or anything like that. And
if anybody is flexible with his character's personalities, it's Raymond.
yeah, that's true. But that's great because it creates all these incredibly memorable moments, but hardly any of that. And he gives me almost nothing at character creation. You really just got to pull teeth to get something. But weirdly, that's only at character creation. But then during the course of the campaign, he has some of the best, like most inventive role-playing moments that create this really complex, mostly hysterical character profile that emerges after, months of play.
I still remember watching Kethler poison all those poor.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
I
still remember that.
That's gonna be one of the hardest times we've ever laughed in any session, and we've laughed a lot. But
yeah, that was
I was
pretty
in
amazing.
tears. Me and Chris were actually talking that we need to come up with a best of moments.
I'll
make Chris edit together because I hate editing video, but that would be a fun thing to do.
There better be some Kalinar doing some haste coke in there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We should probably do it by campaign though, just so it makes sense.
Yeah.
Or like, here's the best of princes, the best of Storm Kings. Yeah.
Princes moments or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I
To that end.
Oh, I was gonna mine's gonna be kind of off subject. So if you want to continue with it, go. I was gonna ask, like, how do you guys pick your ability scores? But
that's part of character creation for sure.
Yeah.
So there are
every time we've played, we've always had an idea of what we want our characters to be when we roll scores, right? So we've known
yes, for our games, yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime we've created a character, we've always been like, this is the character I want. And then when you roll these scores, you try and fit those stats where they need to go for that character. We've never done it where we roll stats. Has anybody done that where you roll dice first and then decide like, oh man, I guess I'm playing a wizard or something?
Whenever I'm rolling up a character as a player, I actually like doing that. I like going into it with a blank slate and just
let the dice
rolling
decide.
it up and just let the dice decide. I'm essentially letting my character be decided by fate.
That's
sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't.
When you do that, do you go from the top of the ability scores down and just roll?
Yeah, I actually roll them in. First roll is strength, second roll is dex, and what happens.
Now the real question is, do you really live on the edge and only roll 3d6 instead of 4d6?
Right, or do you do the drop one? Yeah.
I let the GM decide that.
Yeah. Is that a 5th edition rule that you drop one? Or has that been a rule for a while? Where you?
I think it's just a way to do it in general. I don't think there's like a rule in the book that says specifically do it this way.
I think the player's handbook does say to roll 46 and drop the lowest dice, though. I think it's been a while, but
I mean, it's definitely
3 different
preferred.
things.
Right.
It's definitely preferred because with the 46 drop the lowest, you don't get people with really
garbage
with 3 something in a stat.
The fighter in my campaign would disagree with that. He rolled for his stats. He had no stat below a 10 and no stat above a 13. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to be mediocre
man.
fighter.
Yep.
Still slightly better than the average person. Yeah. So
question is he still alive?
And half the time he rolls 10s and 11s too. It's so funny.
Nice. So to establish this for the purpose of this topic, there are 3 main ways of rolling your character. There's the one we just discussed, which is you roll 4d6 and then drop the lowest and do that for each one of your stats. Usually I think people roll, what are the 6 stats? Is there 6 of them? You just roll that many and then decide where you want them to go from there. You don't literally go top to bottom. I think older editions were stricter on that, but don't quote me on that because I did not play much. I played a little bit of 2nd edition, but other than that, the other way is. Go ahead.
So I was gonna bring up Shadowrun. What was it in Shadowrun? I don't remember.
Oh man, that was a while ago.
I'm testing your memory.
I don't actually remember how you make characters in Shadowrun. I think it was rolling dice. I mean, there had been dice rolling involved.
I don't remember either. The earliest thing I remember is episode 3 of Minds of Phandelver. That's nothing. Everything before that is pretty fuzzy.
Yeah. I don't even know if we made characters when I don't know if I recorded that episode either.
I don't think we did. We recorded
yeah,
that
so I wouldn't have remembered. So the other way is you can pick a standard array, which is literally like just the average. I think it's like 8, 10. See if I can do this. 8, 10,
Mhm.
12.
Keep going. I have it in front of me. Keep going.
Okay. 8, 10, 12. Like 14, 15, 16?
16?
Yeah.
Hey.
13, 14, 15?
13.
Oh,
Oh, worse than
no.
that. Okay. Okay.
Well, the reason that they have it that way is because
That's
then
before racial bonuses.
then you do your racial
Yeah.
bonuses, and that's
Right.
where it creates this interesting balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you do that, there's no way to get an 18, but you don't end up with anything horrendous, and it ends up being a pretty decent average. I think it's literally like the average if you rolled like a bunch of the stat ones. That's what you would come up with. And then the final one is one that I don't think we've ever used, but I remember this is how Neverwinter Nights did it back when I played the crap out of that game in third edition, and then the second one for 3.5, which is you start off with like 8s and everything, and then you can put a very video game RPG-ish. You
Point
can
bar,
put
yeah.
points. Yeah,
Mhm.
you've got a select number of points, and then there's kind of a weird system where like, it costs 2 points to raise from a 13 or 14, and then 3 points to go from a 16 to 17, but only 1 point to go from 8 to a 9, that kind of thing. So it ends up, the point is it ends up being fairly well balanced, but if you want to, you can min-max it a little bit more than you could if you took the standard array.
Yeah, I've actually never had a player do that because it involves too much math.
It's math.
Yeah.
And you offer someone a gamble that maybe they'll get something great. Few people are gonna turn that down.
Yep, I've had some people roll.
People like rolling dice.
Lower than a 16. I will never forget that freaking character.
Yeah.
But then I've had people. I never had like super low rolls, but I've had Bob the Bard. It's like, hey, I'm just working my 9 to 5, and I do some hard work after work. Just how average they were.
Yeah.
Usually, neither of which last very long. The super god character did not last very long.
Interesting.
He got like his head cut off or something. And then Bob the Bard didn't last very long either. It's always people in the middle who don't have amazingly awesome characters or terrible characters that tend to last.
For me, one of the other ones that I threw in there just because it makes them a little bit more excited for rolling is instead of just doing the 46, drop the lowest. I literally just said, okay, you can either go that route, standard array, or we can do 8d20, and the lowest you can have is a 4. Anything less than a 4, you re-roll to kind of play into the 3d6 average, but at the same point in time, giving the chance to get those 18s, 19s, and 20s. The only time it's come back and busted my ass is when somebody turns around and gets like 4 stats that are all over 16, but then
wait, if you
one of
do
the other players is super weak.
So you roll a d20 8 times to come up with
Roll, yep, and then drop 2.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask because otherwise you could start with a 20.
Yeah, no, you
Okay.
can start with a 20. Like I don't care if they do, but that's the max. So
Yeah.
even if they use racial traits, it doesn't play into that particular ability score. The max I'll give you out the gate is a 20.
Boy, level 1 with 20 though, that's pretty nuts.
But the reason I do it that way is because when they level up, they keep telling me I really love feats instead of doing ability score improvements.
Yeah.
So we play into that hardcore. It's not for everybody. I prefer
agree.
standard.
I'd always prefer a feat over ability score, just because it's more interesting. It's like just
True.
generally better at.
But now I feel like you had a fighter who was an archer who took the archer feat, or rather fighting style, and then went battle master to take precision shot as a maneuver. Like I feel like I started seeing like a lot of power, I forget the technical term for it, but the
Wombo
power
combos, like they're
no,
putting
the
together.
power player, power players.
Min-maxers?
Yeah, min-maxers. Yeah, that when that's what's happening, where it's like they have like a specific gimmick that just murders everything. But that specific gimmick, if you follow that path, you're doing 3-4 crossbow shots at level 1, with like a +10 to hit. It's pretty ridiculous. Great weapon master. It's or rather, what's the one for archery? Yeah, I tend to see that a lot. It's like, oh, you're going with hyper build number 7. Okay,
Yeah.
everybody now
I've read that same tutorial you have.
This is a good segue into another subtopic, which is, are there any restrictions that we place on players who are building their characters? So from the DM point of view, do we place any, first of all, do we put any overarching restrictions, any blanket, like you can't do this, either whether that's alignment or race or class or that, or in addition to that, does a character come up with a concept and you're just like, I really don't, either you don't like that in your campaign, or you just don't like the idea of that character and don't think it would fit well, I guess would be the question.
The only real restriction that I normally don't allow is like non-evil alignments, with probably the exception of Lawful Evil. Just because as long as you're the type of like Lawful Evil character that's still going to cooperate with the group, not going to stab anyone in the back or anything like that. As long as you fall into the group dynamic, that's really the only caveat I would have in terms of that, because most folks, honestly, especially with 5th edition, don't care about alignment.
That's very true. Yeah, 5th edition did a very good thing with completely decoupling alignment from all of the mechanical stuff and just making it purely role-playing, which I think is way better and allows me to build a bard barbarian of my dreams. I mean, to worry about chaotic and lawful issues. But yeah, the evil thing, the problem is, I think evil is a lot of times defined as being selfish versus selfless if you're good. And a selfish player character doesn't work very well in a team dynamic.
Exactly.
So it creates a lot of problems.
This is a bit off topic, but I had this thought when I watched Dr. Sleep over the weekend.
No spoilers.
The villains, no spoilers, but the villains in that movie, I remember thinking these guys would be a great, like, they're a D&D crew.
Oh man!
Even though they're all
I need to see this movie now.
They're villains. They're bad people.
Yeah,
but they're a family and they all look out for each other and they're almost cult-like.
Okay. An example of how to be an evil group, then, in other words?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the only way you could get away with it, is if all your evil characters cared about each other.
That's true. You would have to
the outside world.
Right.
Where you get into problems is just when people are like,
I have my own goals.
I steal this thing from my team, my player, who can literally hear me saying these words. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not going to work.
For me, it's just on that evil and good side. That part I kind of leave up to a group decision as a whole.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you have evil and good that are conflicting against each other.
Yeah.
And the only way I'll allow that is if they will evil to a point. Like, they realize that their buddy in the party is going to rat them out if they go too far. And I kind of let them rein that in that way. But but otherwise it just creates too much inter-party conflict where you can't really do what you want to do. So if you really want to go down the evil, then do an evil campaign.
Evil campaign, yeah.
About it.
Specifically, have it be where the players are. You can, it plays into the whole villain thinks they're the hero of their own story, but you could literally do that with a team of villainous PCs if they were all evil together, and if their goals all aligned together, then I think that could work.
Because, like, if you think about, like, Out of the Abyss and the NPCs they throw at you, there's very few at that very beginning, like, session 0 in Out of the Abyss.
The prisoners?
Where any of those other prisoners are actually good people.
Mm-hmm.
But they still party well together because no one's, like, going completely off the rails, because they have one thing that's keeping them all together, and it's survival.
Yeah.
And so typically, if they're doing an evil campaign, typically put it as there's some survival aspect to it. That way, when all of our powers combine, we're Captain Evil. So it works.
Evil.
And actually, you guys might have heard WebDM say this, and I learned this from them. But when it comes to evil characters, my rule for my players is you are lawful evil.
Yeah.
Not lawful stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because players tend to get that warped a little bit. You can even be chaotic evil, but you're not chaotic. Are you chaotic stupid? As a as a person in this world, you have what's called self-preservation.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it doesn't matter how crazy you are, most times you don't want to just die. Otherwise, you would have just put the knife across your throat years ago.
Oh yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a reason why you are a
You're-
player character. If you are
You're talking about
evil,
like situations like walking to the to talk with the king and start killing his guards, that sort of situation.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
like,
evil.
well, you're just,
Like, well, that's
you're
just
just
stupid.
gonna die.
Yeah.
it's like, no, that's stupid. Why would you do that in this room full of people? Why would you throw a fireball into the city
Yeah.
in front of where they can track magic? Whatever the situation. I
Yeah.
tell them, if you play chaotic stupid, you are going to die.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just
Play
natural
chaotic
consequence,
evil.
right?
Yeah. Well,
And
yeah.
evil people should still have like goals and things that they want to accomplish
Yeah.
too. I think just being literally a murdering psychopath is like, look, just go play like Skyrim and kill everybody in the game. I don't think
Exactly.
tabletop RPG is going to be the thing for you.
Exactly. I've definitely had things where like the person plays a lawful good character, but they're actually lawful evil, and everything they do that was good
Cough, Kalinar, cough.
was it was
We
funny
had this debate, and I stand by. I stand by. Judge Dredd is still lawful good.
That's true.
No, Judge is lawful neutral, my man. He is lawful
Okay,
neutral.
fine. Lawful neutral. That's fair enough.
He is lawful neutral.
I am the law.
But
that was my initial idea for Kalinar. Was
Yeah.
1 part Captain America, 2 parts Judge Dredd.
well, Captain America and Judge
Stir
Dredd would not
liberally.
have done haste drugs, so I don't know.
Well, that's very true.
But
He had a character arc.
But you guys see what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I let my characters play whatever they want. They're not at liberty to say, well, I'm playing a chaotic evil character. They tend not to say that. Then they slip me notes. Like I'll open up the note and the note will say, like, I, sneak off at night during the long rest and, fulfill my blood pact with the deep one in beyond the
boy.
stars. It's like, oh, excellent. Okay.
Nice.
So you murder 3 old ladies and you drink their blood. Excellent. Next.
That's just a
No one's
Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah. Great
Yeah,
old,
if
great old
someone-
one needs his blood.
If someone wants to be Peter Baelish from Game of Thrones, and by all means do it, but at least he's smart about when he's doing evil things. If you're going to be Littlefinger, be smart.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then like Sean was saying, the nice thing is 5th edition, with D&D at least, 5th edition has gotten rid of the alignment restriction. So it's not a big thing that the DM has to like nursemaid about like, oh, well, let me check the chart and see. I don't know if that's...
do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're a paladin. You're going to lose your paladin powers if you edge towards chaos. You need to be more that's. I'm glad it can be more organic and just let players.
I have done that.
Ooh, do tell.
Twice actually. When it came to the paladin, the one time it was just the player getting a little skewed, and just a one-on-one with them was like, hey, your guy used to do this and I was doing this. What changed? What's going on? But the other one was like the guy
Having a
knew
rough
his
time.
paladin was changing, and I was like, you've been getting some weird dreams. Helm isn't very appreciative of you setting an orphanage on fire.
What?
That
saw-
orphanage do
he
burn.
saw when you took those gold coins out of the well, in the town square. He saw you do that. You thought nobody was looking. You rolled a stealth check, but he saw you.
And Helm is the Santa Claus of the world.
Like your magic's been a little wibbly wobbly. Maybe you should go to a church. When's the last time you've been to church? What? My paladin's never been to church.
Yeah.
These dreams are happening for a reason.
I do the same thing with warlocks. If they forget what
Yeah.
their pact was and they're just completely going off and super focusing on everything else, I'll sit there and like give them a dream where their patron will be talking to them, or they'll have some sort of experience similar to a critical role type feel, where it's kind of just like giving them a wake up call that if you keep doing this, one day you're going to wake up and there won't be any power.
See, little.
But that's
yeah.
story. That's story.
Right. That's true. That
Mhm.
is.
That's not like I'm not literally like
Gonna
I'll
take
make 'em
away your
freak-
spells or anything.
Yeah, I'll freak him out like every once in a while, just for kicks and giggles, just to see
Yeah.
him squirm, because I'm just that kind of DM.
With the paladin
Sorry,
thing,
guys.
with
But
the
I'll give it
paladin
right
thing,
back.
I could even see a transition to like, you talk to the player and like, hey, do you want to switch to like a different oath, for example, because of the way things have happened in the story?
Yeah, I can see that working too. If they're open to it.
So are there certain classes that you guys say no? Because everybody keeps telling me never allow mystics, but I actually haven't taken the time to read them. Like, is there certain things in character creation where you're going, heck no? Because I'm pretty open book. If they want to be a succubus, by all means, show me the build, and I'll say which things look good and which things are broke, and we'll fix it. Or we'll play test it and we'll adjust it.
Yeah.
But
I
like,
don't know
there's
that
certain
we've
things you
ever
allow
gone
for
off
them.
book for classes.
I mean, the closest we came to was Raymond's Ranger in Storm King's Thunder used the Unearthed Arcana version of a Ranger, which
But that
gave
one
him.
got booked a little while later, didn't it? I feel like that
The
one got
non-magic.
I don't know if it did.
Because we're play testing that now,
I
and
think
it's
it's still UA, but
is
pretty
it?
much everybody uses that Unearthed Arcana for the Ranger because because player handbook of Ranger is just terrible.
Yeah, it's pretty universally regarded now as the Ranger's the weak link here.
But even using the Ranger UA, like I don't allow for the Mystic or the other class, whatever it was. The Artificer
with the fucking gun.
Unless I'm running homebrew. If I'm running homebrew, then I'm like, hey, you throw at me. I'm Teflon John right now. You throw me whatever you want. And you want to be Batman? Come on in. You want to be the Flash? Come on in.
All are welcome.
But if
I think that I would have to like do that on like a case by case basis, like actually discuss it with the player, like and take a look at it, like, hey, does this actually work with what I'm looking at down the barrel of this campaign?
So, and I've mentioned this on a previous call, but I also kind of take what's good for the goose is good for the gander approach, meaning that if you want to include something that's potentially broken, that means your enemies are going to have access to the same thing.
Right.
I like that approach. You have a shotgun? Now your enemies have shotguns.
What about party composition? Is there any thought that goes into that whenever your players are rolling up characters?
Oh yeah, that's usually part of the session 0. The people like, okay, we have 7 rogues. Somebody needs to play.
I bring it up.
Tomb of Annihilation
I'm just leaning back. My hands are behind my head, just whistling like, oh, 7 rogues? Oh, you guys are brave. Okay.
You guys are in the jungle now with no locked doors at all.
At the beginning of Storm King's Thunder, I had a genuine concern about having 2 hard sorceresses in a party. I'm like, this is a lot of just throwing fucking, magic spells at the problem.
It was great.
It was great. It was pretty great, actually. But
it works, though, doesn't it?
Magic solved all of our problems.
It can't kill you if you throw a fireball first.
That's right.
But yeah, I think those discussions. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. But I normally don't really think about party composition. I tell my players, play what you want to play, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
For my players, like I'll hear what they have to say, and I'll talk about different things because I'll have some that are gamers, and they'll sit there and go, "Hey, do we have a healer? Hey, do we have a tank?"
Right.
And
exactly. I was going to say, yeah.
And then I'll say, okay, well, if you were to look for a healer, do you have a specific class you haven't played or you want to play? And then we'll kind of narrow down the options that way. That way there still is choice. You're not just sitting there going, oh, you're obviously a cleric. Druid's a perfectly good healer. There's certain sorcerers that are good healers. So if you want to do that, then those players that are mindful of that, go for it. But at the same point in time, I've had a whole hour-long sit-down discussion with one player about that. And at the end of the day, he was a wild magic sorcerer because he just wanted to do stuff and he wanted to use the table.
Yeah.
By all means, fun prevails.
Exactly. Yeah. That's very true.
It feels like players do a good job themselves, at least with our group, of generally wanting to create a balanced party first, but then second, they will just generally play what they want to play. But it ends up being where that's part of the fun of creating a party comp, and especially with the way we play, which is we make new characters for each campaign. It's not a hard choice of like, this is gonna be my character for the next 10 years. It's like, this is just gonna be my character for the next, year and a half, hopefully. And then they end up creating a pretty balanced team from that. But yeah, the biggest thing is, I think the only worry I have as a DM is just, okay, how much frontline do you have versus how much backline do you have? Like, how squishy is the party? Which I don't think has been too much of an issue.
No. You got the worst. You guys were fine in Storm Kings. You had Tim and you had Kazan, who were both frontline.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, Tim on that front line.
Yeah.
He got beat up a bit, but
How many legs did he have to go?
man,
through?
fucking clerics,
Yeah.
they're the tank and the healer. That's so dumb.
Oh, but
Yeah.
this actually leads into the question somebody asked me before we went live about Mannix, because when we first started the campaign, I was going to have him go cleric. I was going to have him do
Yes. Well, you were originally always going to start rogue, and then you had different multi-class options you were looking at. You never wanted to go pure rogue. Yeah.
Yeah. There was I forget what that's actually called, like wisdom cleric. I forget what the actual
knowledge, maybe
knowledge. Yes,
yeah.
knowledge. Because he was he was supposed to go into the detective
that is
thing.
A lot like a wizard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, he gets premonition and whatever. But then we got well into the campaign. I just started feeling like all the cleric healing stuff was redundant to having a druid and a bard who could do that just fine. I was like, I got
spell book.
Yeah, that's right. Just give me my spell book.
For me, like if the party isn't balanced, like it doesn't have a party comp, like I'll just tell my players up front, hey, if there's another character you want to play, really think about it. Well, like draft another character sheet, because your party comp isn't quite there. So maybe in the campaign you might have to play somebody new.
There may be some deaths. I'm not saying there will be, but
let's not shy away from it. It could happen.
Have a backup ready. What else in character creation have we not covered? So let's see. I've never used. Well, we have used pre-generated, haven't we, Chris?
I guess
we've done one shots.
Yeah, we done a one shot, but I think we did too use pre-generated, because I remember we had this Facebook conversation going where you were just sort of shooting out the pre-generated PDFs.
Yeah.
I ended up not using any of those because that's when I created Filker, the Swamp Druid. But
can't help but create characters because they're fun to create.
That's right. But I think those were all started off pre-generated. But the other
in
thing
terms of stats and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and level 1, 2, 3, it's really easy to sort of, especially if you're doing a one-shot sort of situation. Pre-generated is not that big a deal because it's more role play than like, oh, I'm stuck with these attributes I rolled anyway.
Mm-hmm. This might be bleeding over to a session 0 discussion, which I still want to have for a DM roundtable topic. But are there any, besides the question thing, which I like that idea that Sean was talking about in terms of asking them the employee interview questions, are there any other extra elements to character creation that you as a DM employ? So something that we did for Tomb of Annihilation, which I thought would be a really fun idea, was to we did the backstory, the personal story, and that would have them roll for their trinket at the end of their personal story and have that trinket tie into their backstory in some important way. And then it went hilariously wrong because the trinkets are just kind of all over the place and most of that had nothing to do with their backstory, and it was just kind of a source of humor more than anything else. But is there anything like that you use as a DM for character creation?
Well, one of the things kind of going into the interview questions that we've discussed
I like it.
is once I've kind of gone through that process with each person, I will then go back and forth between the different people and just sometimes ask follow-up questions and sometimes just say, hey, this person is kind of doing this. You're also kind of doing this, and start tying certain backstories together. And whenever I'm actually done, especially with the campaign that I'm running now, before we even had our first session, and I kind of went over this with the group in session 0, I actually had a timeline of events kind of established, like 10 years before the start of this campaign. This is what happened 5 years before, 2 years last year, 6 months ago. And I was actually able to build a timeline where it almost seemed like fate was just bringing the group together to because there was this one initial just bad guy that had basically wronged every single player at some point in time, and they finally had a lead on this person. So it was just like everything was just leading up to this, and it just made for a natural cohesion with the group, which they would have had anyways because it's a D&D group. But
it tied their characters together.
It felt natural. It felt like it was supposed to be.
I think that really plays into the writer that's inside, I think, almost every DM, where that backstory is the part that you're like, give me something, I'm an addict, I want your backstory.
Yeah.
And then some people will just give you like 3 lines, and someone will give you like 5 pages. And it's
I
like,
have no backstory. I have no family.
I like a
Well,
challenge.
yeah.
bring
Well,
it,
it's-
buddy.
That's your writing prompt.
On Storm King's Thunder, I remember like it was all across the board for me because it was sort of like with Reese. Reese is like I want to play this particular race, the robots. What can we do with that?
Warforged,
And I'm
I
like,
believe is how D&D
Warforged,
calls
yeah.
them.
And he left it up to me to make up everything. He's just like, can you just invent a backstory for me? I'm like, yes, I can. Whereas I remember
And that was the most compelling, I think, quest arc we had in Storm King's Thunder.
Yeah, it was.
Whereas Heather, I remember driving to your house for Christmas break, Eric, and Heather and I, she picked me up at the airport,
Yeah.
and she and I talked about her character that entire hour-long ride home.
And
so
guess
she
what?
and I got real into it.
She wants to fucking play that character again. Like, she loves that character to death.
So yeah, I think just however much they want to give, you just let them sort of express themselves or give them the room to do it, and I think they will.
And when players don't give me stuff, that's kind of the reason why when Sean was talking about the interview kind of process, when they don't give me things, I go, well, do you want to roll dice for it? And
Right.
that
Yeah.
immediately grabs their attention. Dice. And it's like you're talking to the birds from Finding Nemo.
That's right.
And so you hand them that Xanathar background part that's right after the classes, and they get so into it. And you're going, yeah, you told me you were going to give me a backstory. Look what you did now.
Mhm.
Yes. So here's the thing about that too. It's what's fascinating is that because I'm thinking it was Rochelle's Dragonborn character actually that we're trying to just come up with random stuff, and she didn't like it. So it was kind of forcing her to come up with stuff because she didn't like the random ideas.
Yeah.
So like people may say they don't have any ideas, but when you start, it's like the where you want to eat thing.
Also, I gotta get going, guys. Good talk.
All right, Marcos, thank you so much for joining us. I think we're pretty much going to wrap this up. Are there any final thoughts for character creation? Sean, final thoughts?
I can't really think of anything else to add from what we've discussed. There is actually a YouTube video that actually was my source of inspiration for like the interview questions, as we've been calling it.
Okay.
A guy, I can't remember his last name, from How to Be a Great GM, actually has a video for it's like 10 questions to ask your new player or something to that effect.
Okay.
And
see if I can find that
a
and
lot
link
of the
it.
questions that I asked, I actually used from his video, and
Nice.
I've had that whole character creation and that timeline I was able to put together all kind of came from that. So it's definitely something worth checking out.
Cool.
Very good. Jordan.
Kind of like Sean, for me, it's the goose and the gander. If your players are super strong, that just means you can get to the fun monsters in your monster manual a little bit quicker. But outside of that, if you're struggling as a DM to come up with ideas of how am I supposed to get my players to do this, for me, 2 things. The Xanathars was awesome, and then I use every other campaign book, supplement, whatever, to allow them choice. So I'll compile everything together, give them all the options for backgrounds, give them all the options for class, all the options for race. But during that session 0, that's when I pulled from 4th edition, the Dungeon Master's Guide 2. And in the very beginning, it talks about those inter-party relationships. So if you're just trying to come up with different ideas, they have stuff out there. You just have to pick and choose what you want and what works for you. But at the end of the day, rule of cool works. As long as the characters are having fun, that's awesome. For my fun, I just want to make sure that their backgrounds actually do something.
Very good. Chris, what are your final thoughts on character creation?
Just that it's tons of fun. It's one of the more fun parts when to get to brainstorm. Like you guys were saying, like that writer in us. That's when I feel like it's a big call to that part of you, and I love it. I love character creation part. I wish I could do it more often.
Yeah, theory crafting is fun, and making characters for fun. I remember I did that towards the end of Neverwinter Nights when I wasn't even playing the game. I was just making characters. And little did I know that I was just yearning to play D&D at that point because I was like, oh man, I've got all these fun ideas for characters for this video game. I would say that character creation should, assuming you're not playing Adventures League, should be as collaborative as possible. I think that is part of the game. Certainly session 0, but even before then, like, chat with your DM about character concepts and ideas, and hopefully your DM will reciprocate by telling you, like, obviously what the campaign is about, if it's something that they've come up with or if it's a published adventure, and then and with your players too, not just collaborate with your DM, but work with your players, get a fun party, and hopefully characters that can work well together from a backstory point of view, from a just characters working together point of view, as well as obviously we hope the players all get along. But yeah, character creation is an important element to D&D, and it can be a very fun and enjoyable process, and it should be the springboard for awesome adventures. All right, everybody, we have gone for about an hour with this DM roundtable discussion, so I think that will bring it to a close. Thank you so much to Sean, Jordan, Marcos, and special guest Chris for joining me for this month's DM roundtable. I am Eric, and I hope to see you all again for next month's DM roundtable discussion.
Bye.
Thank you for that.